Hello everyone, welcome. So today we're going to talk about the Powkiddy X18S. Now, fans who ordered the first batch of these devices have had them for a couple of weeks now and have been playing and testing with them. Obviously, people have been wanting to know about GameCube performance and also PlayStation 2 performance, and there have been a couple of users who've been testing this, and we're going to take a look at their results in this video. Okay, before I get into the GameCube results, just a quick update on the X18S firmware situation. Now, if you watch my previous videos, you'll know that the initial batch of devices had a firmware issue on those devices. So they asked you to go to their website and update the firmware that way. Now, it looks like there's been yet another firmware update, and this one is dated to October the 25th, so go ahead and update your firmware if you want the latest one. Now, the biggest change I see from this firmware is that they fixed the HDMI out burn-in issue. Now, this was an issue where if you use the HDMI port, that would create burn-in on your LCD screen on the X18S. So it looks like they fixed that. Now, if you do update your device, just bear in mind that you're going to be deleting everything off your device, so make sure to back up everything properly that you want first. So there's also going to be a custom firmware called Lineage 18.1 that you can put on your device, and that's been ported over by Black Seraph, and that's going to be coming out soon, and that's going to have a lot of the same features that the official firmware has, plus there are going to be other features as well. One of them is the ability to map the L3 and R3 buttons to one of the buttons on the top row of the X18S. Right now, the analog sticks don't actually have L3, R3, so if you want those buttons, then I would strongly consider looking at Lineage 18.1. And I'm going to leave a link to Black Seraph's Twitter below, so you can check out the news for yourself there. Okay, let's talk about GameCube performance on the Powkiddy X18S, and there were two users, Hijinx187 and TheOlz, on the Retro Handheld Game Discord that have been doing the testing and documentation. Hijinx187 tested all of these games and TheOlz was doing the documentation. I'll leave a link to the spreadsheet itself down in the description below. But this is going to get continually updated, so if you're watching this in the future, go and check out that spreadsheet because it's going to have a lot more games added to it. Now, I'll also leave a link to the Discord so that you can go and thank them for yourself. So as you know, there are 653 GameCube games, and as of 28th of October, Hijinx187 has tested 64 GameCube games and found 41 of them to be working. Now, in terms of what is working and what isn't working, it is a little bit subjective. Like, there are some games that are going to be running at 60 FPS and some games that are running at 30 FPS, but I think how they define yes and no is essentially whether it's a enjoyable experience for the majority of people. It's not absolute perfect or improved upon over the original version, but I think as long as it's playable at decent speed, then I think they have listed it as yes. And they're also a question mark over some titles. So the question mark stands for this is very close to good performance, but it's not quite there yet. And so here they've defined question marks as very close. Maybe perhaps you should try either the PAL ROM or a settings tweak to get it to run a bit better. And there are a few titles here that do that. So here we've got Metroid Prime, Tony Hawk 4, Spyro, Hero's Tale, Mario Sunshine, Hulk, where they're very close but not quite there yet. So I've translated those games from that table over into this table here, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. And this table shows just the working games, and I've got another table showing the non-working games. But let's go over this table here. I'm not going to read all the titles out, but the ones that excite me are Burnout 2, Luigi's Mansion, Sega Soccer Slam, Soul Calibur 2, SSX3 and Tony Hawk 3. Those are really exciting to me. This was a really big generation for me, so I'm excited to get into it, and really this next generation of retro handhelds allow us to play games from this era, so I'm excited about that. So just a quick note on the asterisks, and it's that some of these games require MMJR. Now, MMJR is a variant of Dolphin and a variant of the variant MMJ, and I've got a good explanation here from the creator themselves of MMJR, so you can pause the video if you want to read that. Now, these games were tested with MMJR1, and there is MMJR2 available, so you may get better performance if you use MMJR2. Now, one more thing to note is that the developer has actually stopped developing MMJR, citing time commitments, so we may not get more updates for a while. So looking over the non-working games, there are 19 non-working games here and 5 maybes, and it was always expected that the most demanding games wouldn't work on the X18S given that they were already not working on stronger hardware. So games like F-Zero GX and Rogue Squadron 2 and Rogue Squadron 3, it wasn't expected that these were going to run. Now, there are other games that ran really well on something like an Odin Lite, for example Metroid Prime 2, and here it's not working. So perhaps maybe if you tweaked a little bit further, maybe you can get it to run. So in terms of percentage of GameCube games, the X18S, based on the testing that's done here, it was found that 63% of the games were working, 29% were non-working, and 8% were maybes. So that's roughly about a 60 to 40% working to non-working ratio. And yes, I'm including the maybes in non-working for now. Obviously, that's going to change in the future if more games are found to be working. Now, I think this is a good point to stop and think about whether this system is right for you, particularly if you're on the fence about GameCube performance. So if you are unsure, then I think you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper, because 60 to 40% ratio means that not everything is going to be working. So you're going to have to keep an eye on this spreadsheet and check out and see whether the games that you want to play actually run on this system. If they don't, maybe you're going to have to jump up to another device that can play more GameCube games. And obviously, if you have a stronger processor, that's probably going to mean that it's going to be more expensive. So that's just something that you're going to have to think about. But on the other hand, the X18S, I think at $170 represents pretty decent value for playing 60% of the GameCube library. So one thing I was curious about was performance of GameCube games using the Dolphin and Dolphin MMJR emulator on the X18S. And of the 64 games that were tested, 26 of these were GameCube exclusive. So I singled these out, and so it was found that there were 17 working and 7 non-working and 2 maybes. And I'm not going to go over all of these games because you already saw them before. But let's take a look at the stats, and essentially this means that there was 65% working and 27% non-working and 8% maybes. So roughly about the same ratio there between the working and non-working games. And that also means that third-party games also have a similar working to non-working ratio. Alright, finally, let's jump back into the original spreadsheet. I've got something else that I want to show you guys, and that is that Hijinks187 also tested some PS2 games. Now, he tested this using Damon PS2 Pro, and here are the games that are actually working on the system, and some of them work really well. He's been noting that some of these have been playable up to 60 FPS. Now, he doesn't include all of the games that he's found that is not working, so perhaps maybe later on they'll update this spreadsheet to games that don't work. But I would assume that many of these games probably don't work very well on Damon PS2 Pro and on the X18S. But here are the ones that do, so you can go and check out that in that original spreadsheet yourself. And that's going to be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed that look at the Powkiddy X18S. And if you did, make sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And I'll see you guys in the next one.